switching. I saw it. They keep it hidden most of the time. Instead, what they show is either what was happening in the service or if there were words that needed to be said.
By waving and greeting to our friends joining us by Zoom and Zoomies waiting to us for these.
I'm sorry.
How about now? Good morning.
It's still not on.
Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Lynchburg, and I still have trouble with that name. Here we gather in a spirit of freedom and friendship. Whoever you are, whatever your beliefs, whatever your age, whatever your gender identity, and whomever you love, you are welcome here. As we work together for justice, compassion, and peace, we also acknowledge with humility that our buildings sit on traditional Monacan land. My name is Gary DeVault. I've been a member of UUCL for 53 years, and I'm a member of the Services Committee. If you're with us for the first time, we're glad you chose to be here this morning to participate in the service for this church community. We'd be happy to tell you more about our community during virtual social time on Zoom or in person in Drysdale Hall following the service. If you would like to receive our monthly newsletter and Friday email updates, you can fill out one of the yellow cards in the pocket on the back of the seat in front of you and drop it in the offering basket. If you're on Zoom, please fill out the contact form found on the homepage of our website at uulynchburg.org. You may also wish to join our Facebook group. For those of you on Zoom, please note that the order of service is in the chat to the right of your screen if you're using a PC. If you're using a phone, the link is at the bottom of your screen. As we enter our time of worship, we light the flame of our chalice, sharing these words. May the light now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve you, O Spirit of life. Our opening words this morning come to us from Graham Lennox. We have chosen to bring ourselves here to this sanctuary to gather as a community of faith. We join together in solidarity as a covenanted people who were drawn together by the promise of connection and the mysterious pull of the unanswerable. We draw on experiences of love and wonder to lift our hearts and move us beyond the mundane. As seekers, wanderers, appreciators of nature, connoisseurs of curiosity, and creators of connection, our paths have converged today so that we might become present to the spirit that is worship. And so, let us worship together. Please rise in body or spirit and join me in singing hymn number 207, Earth Was Given as a Garden.
I'd like to invite all the young ones and young at hearts to join me in the front for a story this morning. Good morning. I have a great book this morning, and I think some of us may know it, but it seemed like a really good choice for this month of creativity and talking about Earth and the planet. This is called The Great Kapok Tree. two men walked into the rainforest. Moments before, the forest had been alive with the sounds of squawking birds and howling monkeys. Now, all was quiet as the creatures watched the two men and wondered why they had come. The larger man stopped and pointed to a great kapok tree. Then he left. The smaller man took the axe he carried and struck the trunk of the tree. Whack! Whack! The sounds of the blows rang through the forest. The wood of the tree was very hard. Chop! Chop! The man wiped off the sweat that ran down his face and neck. Whack! Chop! Whack! Chop! Soon the man grew tired. He sat down to rest at the foot of the great kapok tree. Before he knew it, the heat and hum of the forest had lulled him to sleep. A boa constrictor lived in the kapok tree. He slithered down its trunk to where the man was sleeping. He looked at the gash the axe had made in the tree. Then the huge snake slid very close to the man and hissed in his ear. Senor, this tree is a tree of miracles. It is my home where generations of my ancestors have lived. Do not chop it down. A bee buzzed in the sleeping man's ear. My hive is in this kapok tree, and I fly from tree to tree and flower to flower, collecting pollen. In this way, I pollinate the trees and flowers throughout the rainforest. You see, all living things depend on one another. A troop of monkeys scampered down from the canopy of the kapok tree. They chattered to the sleeping man. We have seen the ways of man. You chop down one tree, then come back for another and another. The roots of these great trees will wither and die, and there will be nothing left to hold the earth in place. When the heavy rains come, the soil will be washed away, and the forest will become a desert. A toucan, a macaw, and a cock of the rock flew down from the canopy. Senor, squawked the toucan, you must not cut down this tree. We have flown over the rainforest and seen what happens once you begin to chop down the trees. Many people settle on the land. They set fires to clear the underbrush, and soon the forest disappears. Where once there was life and beauty, only black and smoldering ruins remain. A bright and small tree frog crawled along the edge of a leaf. In a squeaky voice, he piped in the man's ear. A ruined rainforest means ruined lives, many ruined lives. You will leave many of us homeless if you chop down this great kapok tree. A jaguar had been sleeping along a branch in the middle of the tree. Because his spotted coat blended into the dappled light and shadows of the understory, no one had noticed him. Now he leapt down and padded silently over to the sleeping man. He growled in his ear. The kapok tree is home to many birds and animals. If you cut it down, where will I find my dinner? 4 tree porcupines swung down from branch to branch and whispered to the man, do you know what we animals and humans need in order to live? Oxygen. And do you know what trees produce? Oxygen. If you cut down the forest, you will destroy that which gives us all life. Several anteaters climbed down the kapok tree with their young clinging to their backs. The unstriped anteater said to the sleeping man, you are chopping down this tree with no thought for the future. And surely you know that what happens tomorrow depends upon what you do today. The big man tells you to chop down a beautiful tree. He does not think of his own children who tomorrow must live in a world without trees. A three-toed sloth had begun climbing down from the canopy when the men first appeared. Only now did she reach the ground. Plodding ever so slowly over to the sleeping man, she spoke in her deep and lazy voice. How much is beauty worth? Can you live without it? If you destroy the beauty of the rainforest, on what would you feast your eyes? A child from the tribe who lived in the rainforest knelt over the sleeping man. He murmured in his ear, "When you awake, please look upon us all with new eyes." The man awoke with a start. Before him stood the rainforest child, and all around him, staring, were the creatures who depended upon the great kapok tree. What wondrous and rare animals they were! Man, look how many came out all at once. The man looked about and saw the sun streaming through the canopy. Spots of bright light glowed like jewels amidst the dark green forest. Strange and beautiful plants seemed to dangle in the air, suspended from the great kapok tree. The man smelled the fragrant perfume of their flowers. He felt the steamy mist rising from the forest floor, but he heard no sound, for the creatures were strangely silent. The man stood and picked up his axe. He swung back his arm as though to strike the tree again. Suddenly, he stopped. He turned and looked at the animals and the child. He hesitated. Then he dropped the axe and walked out of the rainforest. The end. Oh, what if he dropped it on an ant? Hopefully all the animals were staying back just enough. Probably, yeah. So hopefully he should have taken it home and burned it. That might have been a better idea instead of littering it or risking dropping it on somebody. Yeah. What if he dropped it on the jaguar's tail? Oh, I don't think that probably would have ended terribly well for him. What do you think? Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for sharing this book with me. And upstairs in RE today, we're going to be talking about what we can envision for our future selves and our future world when we use our creativity to ask the what if question that we've been talking about this month. So we're going to go do some more what if thinking and think about what our future selves may look like and think and do and be. So are we ready to head upstairs? All right, let's go.
And staff, as well as the monetary support of our members and friends. If you found this church to be of value in your life, then I invite you to be generous, as our morning offering is freely given and gratefully received. If you're on Zoom, you can send a check to the church at 818 Court Street, Lynchburg, Virginia 24504, or you can contribute using Venmo. There's a link and QR code on our homepage at ulynchburg.org. We receive these monetary gifts, along with the gifts of your time, work, and creativity, which also sustain our church. As together we give generously to support our congregation, let us also commit ourselves to a unity of spirit to make manifest a more just, peaceful, and loving world. Our meditation this morning was written by Kara Fortner. Dear humans, the ones with senses that witness and hearts that break, the ones with brokenness and bruises, seen and unseen, know you are blessed just by being. Dear humans who struggle through changing tides and crashing waves, the ones who dig deep and hold on tight, and the ones who run up the beach to the safety of the dunes, know you are precious and that you have choices. You who let joy kindle your souls even when outside forces would wish to blow out the flame, know you are lovely and wonderful. You who study, research, express, and innovate, who question and test and experiment, know you are needed and valued in your curiosity. Dear humans, the ones who commune with the trees and animals, who admire the caterpillar on the milkweed and marvel at the spider on her web, know you are beautiful in your connectedness. You who struggle, who love, who yearn for more and better and more loving, who suffer, who resist, who play and delight in the important things. Keep your precious ways which bring more loving into the world. Cherish your innovations and your choices, and, dear humans, know that you're blessed just by being. This morning, our speaker will be joining us via Zoom, and she's Elizabeth Nguyen. Elizabeth?
Thank you so much for having me again as your guest preacher this morning. My name is Reverend Elizabeth Nguyen, and I'm joining you from the land of the Massachusetts and Wampanoag people outside of Boston, Massachusetts. I'm a Unitarian Universalist community minister. My full-time work is in the realm of immigration justice, and I'm affiliated at First Parish in Malden, the Unitarian Universalist congregation that my family attends. So for years, my grandmother had a mobile home outside of Orlando, Florida, where she would spend the winters, and we would often escape the snow of the north to visit and play card games on her porch, fish or try to fish, and hang out in the citrus groves. Our annual pilgrimage to Florida was not complete without a day at Highlands Hammock State Park, where we would rent old rusty bikes, eat soft serve, and the highlight for me as a kid, walk the boardwalk through the cypress swamp. I had grown up in the Midwest, and for me, the swamp was something special, new, mind-blowing. These enormous ancient trees rising up all around, and a canopy of leaves so dense that the Florida sun disappeared and shade and cool could be found even on the hottest days. As a kid, I could totally imagine something mysterious appearing from the thick of that swamp, from an alligator to a dinosaur. It had a very particular smell, like green things growing and dying and creating new life. I know this month we've been thinking about our earth, the wisdom, lessons of our sacred, hurting earth. And swamps in particular occupy a very particular place in our imagination. Many often claim to try to, quote, drain the swamp, whatever that means. And many of our cities, from DC to the Back Bay here in Boston, were previous swampland. Swamps are often considered in our imagination obstacles, dangerous places where who knows what lurks in the mud and the muck. But the hammock swamp of my childhood conjured up all these other associations. A place that could seem impenetrable, but was also protective of life within. Maybe you have swamps local to you all in the Virginia area or places you have lived in the past, that you can identify this sense of protection even amidst the impenetrable nature of a swamp. Since it's a Unitarian Universalist congregation, assuredly there is someone who knows way more than me about wetlands and swamps present, so I welcome your feedback later, as I am not someone who has studied this for my whole career. But I have learned that wetlands are an umbrella term for everything from swamps, marshes, mangroves, areas that have so much water in the surface or underground that anything that grows must be adapted for life, saturated with water. The artist and author out of Minneapolis, Ricardo Levins Morales, has an incredible quote. He says, "Liberation struggles are about restoring power to people whose power has been taken away." He says that's also a definition of trauma healing. He says, be a wetland. Detoxify what is upstream. Pass on liberation. And in this time of so much uncertainty, violence, and fear, I am often turning to history as a source of wisdom and resilience. So I want to share 2 stories of finding safety in swamps. One about the Great Dismal Swamp of Virginia, not so close to you all, but also not so far. And the other, the Atchafalaya Basin of Louisiana. So first, the Atchafalaya Basin of Louisiana. The Chitimacha tribe is the only Louisiana tribe that still lives on part of its ancestral land, which once spanned the entire Louisiana coastline. The waters there, the swamps, are under threat for all of the reasons we know. Those threats are not new. In the 16th century, Spanish conquistadors attempted to land ships and take the land from the Chitimacha. The French arrived and began a war, and by the 20th century, the Chitimacha tribe faced extreme racism and poverty. The language almost did not survive. But Chief Benjamin Paul and Delphine Stouff were the last two fluent speakers of the language. Though they died in the 1930s and 40s, before their passing, they met with an ethnographer who recorded 200 stories, 200 hours of stories and vocabulary. Kim Walden, the cultural director of the Chitimacha tribe, says about the language, "It was going out the back door, and we caught it right as it was slipping away. Because if we wouldn't have had recorded those stories from those elders, we wouldn't know the correct pronunciation. My generation wouldn't have known." She said, "We didn't say our language was dead or extinct. She said it was sleeping, and it was able to be woken up." The Chitimacha language is now taught in schools, and via the Rosetta Stone Endangered Language Program is accessible to every tribal member. The safety of the physical swamp may be receding due to climate change, with great mourning and sadness. And yet, from the brink of loss, the language persists. There's an incredible short film called Native Waters, a Chitimacha recollection by Roger Stouff, who's an author, fisherman, and the son of that last chief of the Chitimacha who recorded the language. And these are some of his words from the film. He says, "This is how my world begins. The Creator commands crawfish to swim down below the waters and bring up mud, more and more until the mud pierces the surface and dries under the sun. Crawfish builds the land, water confronts it, and the infinite journey between the two. These majestic swamps and marshes, the rivers slicing courses through the earth, the abundance, the safety." We move from the safety of the swamps of Louisiana to the safety of the Great Dismal Swamp in Virginia. Maybe some of you know even more deeply than me about its history, so I look forward to learning more because I am newer to learning its story. But what I've learned is that between the 17 and 1800s, the swamp was home to a number of indigenous communities, including poor and outcast white people and very diverse communities of Black people, some formerly enslaved, some self-emancipated and free, some working as watermen in the swamp. And that archaeological projects have found tools, corners of homes that point to very robust communities of people that lived on islands and raised houses in the swamp. We know that some hid in the swamp on the way north. Others lived whole, free lives there. The swamp itself, at one time the size of the state of Rhode Island, has been described by some as truly impassable, with clouds of mosquitoes, biting flies, bears, even panthers. They say that Washington beat the British, but he could not beat the swamp, could not drain it or tame it, despite many attempts. Historian Dr. Catherine Golden has written an essay called Armed in the Great Swamp, and she calls the Great Dismal Swamp a landscape of Black power and self-reliance. William Byrd II, who owned slaves, called the Great Dismal Swamp a city of refuge, and he meant it in a negative way, but when we look back, there's so much power in that. In 1728, he said he saw a family of, quote, mulattoes that called themselves free, using a word from that time. He said, "It's certain many slaves shelter themselves in this obscure part of the world, and that if the problem did not get under control, they might rise up and create their own city of refuge for debtors and fugitives." I was intrigued to learn that an early book on the maroon communities of the Great Dismal Swamp was actually written by a Unitarian minister, Reverend Hugo Prosper Leeming. Reverend Hugo Prosper Leeming identified as a communist in high school. He organized with the Union Now movement and was later ordained by the Free Religious Association and later converted to Islam. He was born in Richmond, Virginia, and according to his own biography, he was very proud of coming from a poor white family that had a lot of solidarity with other poor people and with people of color. His great-grandmother, Mary Allen, helped to lead several thousand black and white women, all of them poor, in the burning of Richmond at the close of the Civil War, and later fought for the right to vote for poor white and black people. Harriet Jacobs, the formerly enslaved author of Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl, which I know I read when I was either in high school or in college, hid in the Great Dismal Swamp on her way to freedom. She wrote that venomous snakes were less dreadful to imagination than the white man that community called civilized. The white journalist Frederick Law Olmsted wrote, quote, "There are people in the swamps now that are the children of fugitives, and fugitives themselves, all their lives." Reverend Leeming wrote about the organizing and support that happened between Native American and Black communities in the swamps. Dr. Catherine Golden, who studied the swamp significantly, said nowhere else in the slaveholding South were enslaved people able to accomplish the organization and rebellion that happened in the Great Dismal Swamp that reached across state lines. Some of the names of the leaders who revolted in the name of freedom, who found freedom and safety in the swamp: Captain Peter, Gabriel Prosser, Tom Copper, Captain Frank, Frank Sumner. Not names that I was taught, but names that I was taught when I was younger or taught in history class, but names that now more than ever I lift up as I am searching for ancestors who know how to create freedom and safety amidst great challenge and difficulty. These leaders used the waterways of the swamp. They stored guns and ammunition and other weapons in the swamp, and so that they could rise up year after year, attempting to escape enslavement. Dr. Golden called the swamp insurgent ecology, naming that the nature of the swamp itself supported a vision of life outside of slavery, outside of enslavement. Another one of the well-known residents of the swamp was Moses Grandy, author of Narrative of the Life of Moses Grandy, late a slave in the United States of America. He wrote about his time in the swamp saying, "I went upon my occupation working the canal boats. I carried myself to cross a canal in the dismal swamp. I was left on shore and built myself a little hut here amongst snakes, bears, and panthers. When at length I had got my free papers, so that my freedom was quite secure, I felt to myself so light that I almost thought I could fly. And in my sleep I was dreaming of flying over woods and rivers." Reverend Leeming ended his book on the freedom communities of the Great Dismal Swamp and the maroon communities of the swamps, saying that society has often referred to the study of the other America, the America that might have been. And he says, no, it was the America that was for a time in certain places. He says alternatives actually existed. Perhaps, these are his words, a sick nation can obtain health through awareness of alternatives. Memories long suppressed, the many paths which open into alternate futures. Perhaps for nations it is the arduous path that reaches the healing waters. You better run to the city of refuge. After being forced to buy his freedom, actually more than 3 times over because of enslavers who stole his earnings, with the money he earned running boats in the swamp, Moses Grandy was an active abolitionist, traveling to London to speak on abolition and using the money from the publication of his memoir and the money he earned as a free worker to purchase the freedom of his wife, his children, and his grandchildren. In 2000, Eric Shepard, Moses's great-great-great-nephew, wrote a book memorializing Grandy and is part of a coalition pushing for the swamp to be recognized as a national heritage site. Tools used by Maroons, the free enslaved, formerly enslaved people in the Great Dismal Swamp, are on display at the National Museum of African American History and Culture, less than a mile from where the leader of this current administration sits in the White House. And the Chitimacha language lives on, even as the safety of the physical swamp of the Atchafalaya Basin is under attack. From Roger Stouff's words about swamps, the graceful poetic balance of water and land, these majestic swamps and marshes, the abundance, the safety. When we started going to Highland Hammock State Park, my grandma used to ride bikes alongside us. And when she couldn't bike anymore, she would walk part of the loop along the boardwalk. And then later my mom would drive her, waving at us on our bikes. And when she could no longer make the journey south to Florida, we stopped going to the Cypress Swamp, and we haven't been since. But I think the time is now to look to the swamps, whether physical or spiritual. No one wants to live amongst the mosquitoes or the black biting flies or the bears. And still, it's in these edge places, often discarded and doubted by the mainstream, that safety, resistance, survival can live. You probably are thinking of the places in your community or in your life that have been a swamp, impenetrable to outsiders, safe and protective for you. Or maybe you've been part of creating a swamp for someone else who needed safety, needed survival. There are corners of the internet, our towns, our minds, our congregations that are kindred to a swamp, that can be our insurgent ecology. I can tell just by listening to you share in your joys and sorrows that those safe swampy places are present for LGBTQ people, at the city council hearing, within your homes and hearts. Where what might seem impenetrable, hostile to those who would harm us, becomes protective, becomes a city of refuge, a place to plot freedom and survival. To remember all of the stories within our history of those who carved out life amidst obliteration, who eked out free living, even when it seemed impossible, who refused to give up, who found the places where the land and the water meet, where freedom can be found, where language can be preserved, where we don't give up because we can find safety in a swamp. Amen. and may it be so.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Please rise in body or spirit and join me in singing hymn number 338, I Seek the Spirit of a Child. As our service draws to a close, we extinguish the flame of our chalice as we say these words together. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Let's end our service by waving farewell to our friends on Zoom and Zoomies, waving to us roomies.
Mary, the Zooms need to stay for the annual meeting.
I'm reminded the annual meeting is immediately following, and you're encouraged to stay on Zoom. Our closing words were written by Barbara Cheetham. And now we take our leave. Before we gather here again, may each of us bring happiness into another's life. May we each be surprised by the gifts that surround us. May each of us be enlivened by constant curiosity. And may we remain together in spirit till the hour we meet again.